Good evening. Welcome to the April 13th City Commission meeting. If you could please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Your Honor. Commissioner Baldini.
Here.
Commissioner Cambenzi.
Here.
Commissioner Connolly. Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Campana.
Here.
And Mayor.
Here. Is there a motion to excuse Commissioner Connolly? Commissioner Campana.
So moved.
Excuse me. You have to raise your hand. Okay. Commissioner Campana.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Commissioner Conley as he's unable to be here.
Commissioner Baldini.
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Notice of any agenda changes. I have one agenda change that I would like to add, and that is a proclamation honoring City Clerk David Blue, and I'll read that at the appropriate time after announcements. Are there any other agenda changes? Seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda. Commissioner Baldini.
So move.
Commissioner Frazier. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say yes.
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 Okay, the agenda is adopted. Now, to avoid embarrassing Dave, having him read this, because it would be sort of self-serving and embarrassing for him to read it, so I'm going to read it, okay? This is a proclamation honoring City Clerk David J. Blue. Whereas the office of City Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, has existed since the city was established, and whereas the office of City Clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas Mr. David Blue served as the city clerk from April 2006 to April 2015, and it is most appropriate that we recognize the many outstanding accomplishments that Mr. Blue during his tenure as city clerk, including his extremely effective management of the duties of his office, his support of an expanding government-wide transparency through partnerships with the Northern Michigan University Archivist and others, his dedication to the will of the community and support for the charter revision process, his commitment to improving the professionalism of clerks throughout Michigan, including twice being a finalist for the State of Michigan Clerk of the Year honor, his resolute management of local, state, and federal elections, and his tireless service during the hundreds or thousands of city commission meetings. I threw the thousands in. Now, therefore, I, J. Michael Coyne, Mayor of the City of Marquette, do recognize the outstanding service of Mr. David Blue on behalf of myself and all the commissioners and city charter commissioners who are listed below, and extend our heartfelt thanks and appreciation for the vital services he's performed and his exemplary dedication to the residents of our community. And the mayors are listed as Tony Tollefson, Tom Turville, John Keevala, Johnny DePietro, Bob Nemi, and myself. And the city commissioners are Joe Levy, Dan Dallas, Beth Lina, Don Potvin, Don Ryan, Fred Stonehouse, Dave St. Ons, Jason Snyder, Tom Baldini, Sarah Cambenzi, Mike Connolly, Pete Frazier, Sarah Reynolds. And the city charter commission members, Tom Baldini, Robert Barabee, Sarah Cambenzi, Martha Connolly, myself, Cameron Howes, Bob Kulishek, Connie Mizuki, and Tom Turville. And I think all of those people listed really, truly appreciate the outstanding job you've done, Dave. So you're going to, the next meeting is your last meeting, and we wanted to do this now because there's some other special things on the last meeting that we're going to do. But I think the commissioners wanted to just say thank you. So it's a proclamation.
Thank you, Your Honor. Commissioners. That's quite a humbling experience. Thank you all very much.
You're welcome. Aren't you glad you didn't have to read that?
Very.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for letting me read that. And announcements, I have no announcements. Boards and committees. We have appointees for Aaron Andrews for Planning Commission for a term ending February 15th, 2018. Maura Davenport, the Presque Isle Advisory Committee for a term ending 4/1/18. Tammy Dawidowski, Parks and Rec Committee, term ending January 29th, 2017. And Steve Casey, the Sustainable Community Ad Hoc Committee, Department of Environmental Quality Representative, for a term ending September 1st, 2016. A motion appropriate would be to include all of them in a motion. Commissioner Cambenzi.
Make a motion to approve the following appointments as read.
Is there support? Commissioner Campana.
Second that.
All right, any further discussion? Just thanks to these folks for stepping up. Call the question. All those in favor of these appointments, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. Next item is a public hearing regarding the changes to Chapter 20 of the City Code Emergency Management Ordinance. And this has to be a roll call vote before you jump on me and remind me that, so I know that now. Mr. Clerk, could you please read the item?
Yes, Your Honor. The State of Michigan and the County of Marquette have recently submitted changes that must be incorporated into our city emergency management ordinance. All but one change are unsubstantive. Section 20-10, Disaster Contingency Fund. This language has been deleted as the city has not maintained a fund for at least 20 years. At the March 9th, 2015 meeting, the City Commission scheduled a public hearing to consider the adoption of ordinance number 626. Fiscal effect none. Recommendation, adopt the ordinance, section 20-10 of the City Code, the City of Marquette Emergency Management Ordinance number 626, alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to come forward and testify at the public hearing, please do so. State your name, address, and city or township of origin. Residence, rather. Anyone wishing to come forward? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. I would just remind the commissioners that Chief Bell is here if there are questions, and he would be happy to answer. Is there a motion or regarding this adoption of the ordinance change? Commissioner Campana.
I move that we adopt the ordinance, section 2010 of the City Code, the City of Marquette Emergency Management Ordinance number 626.
Is there support? Commissioner Baldini.
Support.
Commissioner Campana, any comments?
This is an ordinance that deals with the emergency and disaster possibilities that could occur within the city, and just gives directions as how such situations would be handled by local officials. This is basically a plan to be prepared. Thank you.
Commissioner Baldini.
Just that this is sort of cleanup language because of some new legislation and other provisions.
Any other discussion? Commissioner, you have some comments?
Just to Commissioner Baldini, it's just housekeeping mostly, and the contingency fund hasn't been there for 20 years, nor is it required by Public Act 390. So we can take that language out.
Okay, thank you. Why don't you just stay there for a minute in case there's any further questions or anything. I just have a comment. Apparently by statute, the emergency manager, who is you, has to meet with the mayor to every so often to debrief what's happening. And that is, I did that a couple weeks ago, and it is very impressive. And I'm very impressed by how you have a handle on everything and how well it's organized, and the difference between an emergency and a disaster and what things have to take place. So I'm very pleased and confident by the excellent job you've done complying with this law and revising it, and then the organization. And you have had several occasions had to implement this with the flood and some other emergencies, and then the flood was a disaster, I believe. And it's just very effective to have all of this organized so it isn't a bunch of people running around yelling at one another and having no idea what to do. I mean, it's very, very well organized. I'm impressed. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay. Any further questions or discussion? If not, I'm going to call for the motion. All those in favor of, I'm sorry, we'll have a roll call. Darn.
Yes, Your Honor. Commissioner Baldini,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimbenzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Conley is not here, Commissioner Frazier,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Campana, and Mayor Coyne.
Yes. Well, that motion passes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Sustainable Community Ad Hoc Committee. Amy, are you here? Thank you for being here tonight, and we look forward to your presentation.
Give it a minute for that to come up. Is the microphone on? Can you hear me all right? Fine.
You could maybe speak up a little more.
Okay, I will try to speak up a little bit more and maybe take a minute to get familiar with this. I think the up arrow, down arrow flips to the next, and then up arrow would go back. Thank you. Okay, I am the chair of the Sustainable Community Ad Hoc Committee, and I thank you all for inviting us to be here and present. The background of the committee, these are our current members. The committee is, I think actually the next slide, I'm going to move. I actually have on here on this list a current opening and a question of who might fill that. I think we answered that question already this evening with the new appointment from the DEQ. There were 6 meetings scheduled this year, one every 2 months, or for the year of 2014. They were scheduled every other month on the second Wednesday of the month. So we held 4 meetings. 2 of our meetings were canceled due to a lack of quorum. In November, we then voted to meet monthly beginning in January to increase the productivity of the committee. That was also to reduce the confusion, because some of those missed meetings was questions of, wait, is this a meeting month or is it next month? And so having meetings every month eliminates that question. The Sustainable Community Ad Hoc Committee advises the City Commission on ways that the city can decrease its environmental impact on the community, establish short-term and long-term goals for the city, and discuss creative ways for the city to partner with the business community and residents to help preserve the natural environment and decrease energy consumption. This is the new wording as of November of this past year, 2014, and in this purpose and goals statement, it provided some really good clarification for our committee as an advisory committee rather than as a committee that is intended to go out and enact projects of our own. That was a recent conversation at our meeting. So our accomplishments in 2014, we developed a 2-year strategic plan. Part of that, we conducted a citizen survey at the 2014 City Open House. I have results from that a little bit later in the slides. We supported a resolution from the Superior Watershed Partnership encouraging Marquette residents to avoid the use of products containing microbeads. Those are small plastic beads that are commonly found in beauty products and cosmetics, for like anything that says it scrubs with microbeads. We also determined education and outreach regarding recycling to be a high priority. And one of the biggest ways that we think the city can reduce environmental impact is to increase awareness of the outstanding recycling program that we actually have in our city. So these were the survey results from the open house. The question that introduced this survey was pretty much looking at how important is this, in your opinion. So to reduce the use of chemical pesticides, fertilizer, herbicides within the city limit, most respondents strongly agreed. And I included in their comments that were written line by line. So we asked about preserving areas of undeveloped city property. A lot of people agree with that. Some said it was too broad. Some said some of it yes, some no, depends on the parcel. So a lot of what this is showing us is that basically there is really strong support for some of the things our committee identified as potential ways, things that we could look into, and generally we think, yeah, people are in support of these. And it also shows that we would have work to do to clarify if we were going to do a full survey. Obviously, this had, I think, about 50 respondents, and certainly would not be considered scientific or a representative sample, but certainly gives an idea of where we're at in the city. We had one other question specifically about the recycling program and how well people understand the recycling. And again, most people felt they had a pretty good control of it. Some had absolutely no idea that we even recycled. And there were some comments on ways that we could improve recycling, other things that we could look into. So our committee has used the information from these results as part of informing how we will move forward and what kinds of things we'll be looking at. So our goals for 2015 are to develop a recycling education and outreach plan that we would then bring to the commission to recommend. So we're hoping to help Marquette reach the statewide goal of 30% of the waste stream being recycled. We're estimated to currently be at about 20%, and that's by tonnage, by weight. So then we will revisit our 2014 survey results to guide our recommendations to the commission. We will conduct a public forum later in the year to allow community members to bring forward ideas and concerns about environmental impacts, clean energy, reducing energy consumption. So it'll be scheduled again during the second half of the year. So the committee is discussing our expected outcomes and how this forum might be conducted. We are also looking to review policies and make recommendations. We'll be reviewing the master plan and possibly making recommendations for accomplishing goals that are included in the master plan, and that to accomplish them in ways that would be both in alignment with the master plan and the purpose of this committee for doing it in an environmentally friendly way. So the recent clarification of the committee's advisory role will be guiding our future goals to focus on policy level recommendations to the commission. Are there any questions at this time?
Well, Amy, thank you. Very excellent report. You've done a great job as chairperson providing focus, clarification, and direction to this committee. I mean, it was kind of, didn't know exactly where to go, so you've done a really good job. Commissioners, Commissioner Baldini?
I have a question. The 30% waste stream, did the state set a target date for that?
I don't remember the target date. I'm guessing it was within 3 to 5 years is my gut, what I'm remembering that may have been.
Okay, and we're at about 20, you believe?
That's my recollection. It's not set in stone, but a ballpark. We're at about 20%. Now, we may not be measuring it exactly as the 30%. So the things to look at is exactly how is that measured, making sure that we really are on target for 30%.
Welcome. Commissioner Kamenzi.
I, too, would like to thank you for your leadership on this committee. And I know when I was at the open house, we talked about getting the public schools involved.
Yeah.
So anyone that works at the public schools sees how much cardboard and paper and waste from lunches when the kids really don't want to eat because they want to go outside at recess.
Yeah.
There's a lot that gets thrown away, and when you think about every school has pickups just about every other day for garbage, and our recycling pickup is about once a month at every school. It's a big difference. So I look forward to what you guys come forward with that program, and even Northern. I think we're seeing a lot less garbage dumped in the woods with the education. Still a few couches, though, when the college kids move out and don't know what to do, and getting the word out that, even being a resident or their landlord being a resident, they can go and dispose of stuff during the summer. So, but thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Campana?
Amy, I think you're doing a really good job leading this committee, especially at the city of Marquette, now trying to get into recycling more than in the past. Gives you good purpose, I would hope. I guess, especially microbeads, good to get. It would be nice if people would discontinue that use. My personal dislike is plastic bags. I don't know if you've addressed that. Has that come up in comment?
Well, our committee certainly could look at making a recommendation to draft policy banning the use of plastic bags, and what that would involve is getting business owners in the city limits on board with not using plastic bags to bag people's products that are going out. Just in conversations with other people, a lot of people's first response is, but it's not our local, in the city of Marquette businesses that are producing most of those plastic bags. They're coming from the big boxes that are in the townships. So that may require a bit more collaboration, but certainly an ordinance of the sort from the city of Marquette would set a great precedent in that direction.
Right. You'd have to almost have a countywide cooperation on this. One last question. You're having monthly meetings now, or
Yes.
have you had them?
Yes.
You have quorum?
We actually had full attendance at our last meeting.
Great. Okay.
So it was very exciting, yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you again. Super job. Really appreciate it. And thanks. Okay. The next item on the agenda is public comment. If you wish to make a public comment, please come forward, state your name, address, and city or township of residence, and also if you'd like to reserve time to speak on an item, please tell us your name and we'll put your name down for that item. And you have 3 minutes each.
Too tall for the microphone, I apologize. My name is Bryce Burge. I live at 423 West Crescent, and I'd like to reserve time for item number 8 under new business, the FOIA appeal for Michael Niger. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Bob Kimbenzi, 306 North 6th Street, Marquette. First of all, I'd like to compliment Commissioners Baldini and Conley on bringing up the item last meeting about this little trip to Tennessee. Now maybe there's 3 commissioners that understand what the planning process should really be. And whoever made the comment that Duke shouldn't be expected to bring their entire staff up here, how much of their staff would they really have to bring up here to do a presentation before us? 3 or 4 or 5? Commissioner Baldini said there's a vacuum in this town about Duke Life Point. There really is. And any of you that think there isn't, either you're sitting in your houses with the window shades drawn and the phone off the hook or something, because there's a lot of people out there wondering what's going on. And by going down to Tennessee, meeting behind the closed doors down there, you just play right into that. You make that vacuum worse. Commissioner Conley said they want to build their hospital in our town. We don't want to move our town down to their town. Why don't they come here? We've also heard comments that when we know exactly what we're going to do, we'll have public forums. What are public forums for? To have the people do their complete plan, bring it to us when it's done, or to bring it to us when it's in the planning process, so we can talk about things. You know, and I'm sure 98% of the people in town aren't concerned whether there's 300 rooms in the hospital or 295, but they're pretty concerned about the site, the bridge across the bypass, and a number of other things like that. But we're in a fog. You know, Duke Life Point, another part of the problem is when they came to town here 4 or 5 years ago, they were going to do all kinds of things. We're going to have 50 new doctors. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. They're going to have 50 new doctors because the exodus out of town of 50 of the doctors that we've got is almost complete. You know, there's a lot of comments that have come out, press releases and everything else. It's pretty hard to believe them, isn't it, when most of them don't come true. When you guys go down there, why don't you ask them to put it on the, televise it, send it back here to Charter. They can port it back here, or at least make a copy of it. Put it on the website. Thank you.
Frank Jefferdo, 350 East Ridge, Marquette, to speak on item 8. These are my opinions. Our newest issue is a 5-story apartment proposal at Flounders. For 17 years, our boards and public alike had agreed on a high-density development to provide a smooth transition from the lake to downtown. A standalone building with a cafe doesn't accomplish that. Instead, you're further relinquishing our lakeshore to a privileged few. As in the cases of the Commons, Lakeshore site, and other aspects of Founders, we're ending up with less than what this board presented. Phase 1 at Lakeshore site was to be the renovation of 2 historic buildings into galleries, retail, and loft apartments. Today, the buildings still lie vacant. March 31st, Coyne and Connolly took delight in seeing me bashed by a critic who offered no specifics as to what bothered him. You react by who's who, not the validity of what is said. The latter half of my comment pertained to the Sunday library closure, which doesn't seem to bother you, but the literate majority of us are bothered. To date, you've made no effort to amend the budget by trimming lesser items, perhaps from my March 31st suggestions. You responded by voting to spend $4,100 tax dollars under public protest to send 4 officials to Tennessee for a presentation that's better held here. That's enough money to keep our library open for almost 2 Sundays. Your vote made clear where your priorities lie, a vacation for 4 versus library usage for hundreds. Most troubling were you 3 who voted to send yourselves, constituting yet another alleged ethical conflict of interest. Just as oddly, 3 of the 4 no votes came from members who'd be left behind. Since DLP invited you, let them pay. Tell them the truth. We can't afford it. Connolly suggested they hold the meeting in the light of day. To hold it there is not within the spirit of the OMA. The public should be involved in the entire process, he said. Compenzi added, people are angry and making assumptions. Well, your vote solved many assumptions, but exacerbated our anger. Coyne's argument for the trip failed to explain why teleconferencing isn't practical. He addressed only what he wanted heard. His vote to give himself an advance preview of the hospital contrasted his November 10th statement that as mayor he'd be an equal person. March 31st, an opponent spoke as if I'd berated our whole town by complaining about the library hours and excessive impact to the boathouse site. Your snickering exemplified your good old boy mentality and your prevailing politics, all while the specifics are etched on record for all to see. Despite the negativity you hear, we live in an incredible community with a wealth of fun things to do. It is my esteemed pleasure to be part of this community. Our guests don't want to leave, and the best part of any vacation is returning here to one of this country's finest places. Preserving our unique quality of life is an ongoing struggle for those who enjoy nature and who've witnessed the inundation of other places.
Good evening. Yorma Lankinen, 8 Marquette Drive. I, for one, do compliment you guys to going down to Duke. That is how business is. People tend to forget it is a private organization. It's a private business. It's not a not-for-profit anymore. So both sides are exercising courtesy on both sides. So I encourage to do that, to see and help each other's agenda. You guys are representing the city of Marquette. They're representing their private company, and they want to make it as inducive and conducive to the general public as possible. They are serving the general public at large. You guys are representing us, and the two always need to meet and make it good for you. That's why we, the citizens of this community, voted for you guys to go out there. We can't have 20,000 people or 18,000 people of our community go there. You guys represent, so you are voted to represent our best interest for the community to visit, and I encourage that. And like Mike Coyne said, he will definitely tell the entire community what he learned, and I believe the other commissioners that are going also mention that they will mention what they learned at the visit. Hand-to-hand, eyeball-to-eyeball is always the best way to find out what's happening in the real world. I've been in business for 40 years. Teleconference and electronically just does not work very well. Eyeball-to-eyeball, handshake-to-handshake, fuzzy, warm feelings. You only find that out when you visit with people. You don't get that by doing teleconferencing. It just doesn't work in the real world that way. If I run out of time, I'd like to have also speak on number 8. The reason I like to speak on number 8 is it just seems incredibly absurd to put the city in the bind that they are when an individual tends to lose in one arena of getting the commissioners to recall, and then once they fail at that procedure, then they want to go after a bunch of emails and try to penalize for their failure in first part of their action or their second part of their action. And so it appears to me that that individual is attempting to penalize the city and the taxpayer dollars in putting incredible amount of extra additional work that may be involved in that. Myself as a person on Landfill Authority, we ended up getting the freedom of information as well. And I mean, it came down to wanting to put the thumb drive into the computer, and it just can't do that. You just can't go on forever like that. And so I'm sure there's a workable situation, but that just seems to be so unfair. One last note on the recycling. The recycling is working super well. It's working so well that we have an overage. We are holding the recyclables in our trailers because the market has just plummeted down to nothing, which means that we're at a negative income level. So we're trying to hold that right now in order to help all the communities with the recycling. So it has a double-edged sword. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert Nemi. I live at 1702 Gray. I'd like to make a couple comments on agenda item number 7. And I'd also like to mention that I think it's a good idea for us to send people down to Tennessee, to Duke Life Point, to actually meet the people. Many times we've had Duke Life Point people up here already. We had a whole crew of them when we signed the memorandum of understanding, and I'm sure in the future there'll be many more, and especially when they're ready to release the plans and their ideas to the public. So I think it's a good thing. And lastly, I'd like to give my compliments to Dave Blue on an amazing career. Wish him well in his retirement, and I think one of his greatest legacies, probably there's many, but one of the greatest is getting the city records on the NMU's archives. It's just an amazing thing to be able to go back and look at minutes from 100 years ago with the city commission. So, Dave, I give you compliments on that. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service.
Anyone else wishing to come forward and speak? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing part of the public comment part and move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, allowing Commissioner Reynolds to abstain for the bills payable? Mr. Campana.
I move that we accept the consent agenda except for the one bill for Sarah Reynolds.
Is there support to that? Support.
Second.
Commissioner Reynolds supports that. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Okay, opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Now a motion to approve the reimbursement for Commissioner Reynolds and allowing her to abstain. Yes, Commissioner Campana.
Make a motion that we approve the reimbursement, the one reimbursement to Commissioner Sarah Reynolds.
Is there support to that? Commissioner Baldini? Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
That passes. Okay, we now move on to unfinished business. And that's item number 5. Mr. Clerk, could you read item number 5, please?
Yes, Your Honor. It's a Center Pond Marina Harbor Master Lease Agreement. Background, at its July 14th, 2014 meeting, the City Commission approved the Harbor Master request for a 30-foot slip in the Center Pond Marina and lease agreement with Daybreak Charters, LLC, to provide mooring field maintenance and waterfront safety response operations. The Harbor Master is requesting the same for the 2015 season. The city attorney prepared the agreement, which has been approved by Daybreak Charters, LLC. The term of the lease is 6 months and considers in lieu of monetary rent the provision of a combination of goods and services and funds in an amount not less than $2,954, which is deemed the fair market value for the premises. The proposed lease agreement was introduced at the Commission's March 30th, 2015 meeting and approved as recommended to move the lease agreement forward to the April 13th, 2015 meeting. Fiscal effect, this action will result in unrealized revenue to the Cinder Pond Marina Fund in the amount of $2,954. Recommendation, approve the lease agreement with Daybreak Charters, LLC, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Is there a motion regarding this? Mr. Frazier.
Make a motion to agree with the Harbor Master lease agreement.
That is approving the lease agreement with Daybreak Charters, LLC, and authorize
Daybreak Charter lease agreement with the Harbor Master.
And authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement, okay? Is there support to that? Commissioner Reynolds?
Second.
Commissioner Frazier, any discussion? Nope. Commissioner Reynolds?
No.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as submitted, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Okay. Opposed? That motion passes. Okay. New business. Senior millage proposal. Mr. Clerk, could you please read that?
Yes, Your Honor, sorry. In 2011, the City Commission approved a 4-year senior millage budget proposal, ballot proposal, which the electorate subsequently approved. The Aging Services Advisory Committee, charged with developing a senior millage renewal ballot proposal for submission to the electorate at the August 4th, 2015 primary election, as authorized by law, submits the following ballot language for the City Commission's consideration. Quote, the senior millage renewal will allow the City of Marquette to continue to provide services to those 60 years and older through the City of Marquette Senior Center. The question is, shall the City of Marquette, Marquette County, Michigan, be authorized to levy .3500 of 1 mil or 35% per $1,000 on the taxable value of all real and personal property within the City of Marquette for a period of 5 years, 2016 through 2020 inclusive, in order to provide quality services to Marquette City residents age 60 and older. This millage will generate approximately $238,781 in the first year, unquote. The ballot language was reviewed and approved by the city clerk. Once approved by the city commission, it will be submitted to the county clerk for review and placement on the ballot for the August 4th, 2015 primary election. Fiscal effect, none by this action. Recommendation, adopt the attached resolution to submit the ballot language on the August 4th, 2015 primary election for dedicated millage renewal to operate the Marquette Senior Center and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Commissioners, Commissioner Baldini.
I move, sir, that we adopt the attached resolution to submit the ballot language on the August 4th, 2015 primary election for dedicated millage renewal to operate the Marquette Senior Center and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution.
Is there support to that? Commissioner Campana.
Second that.
Commissioner Baldini. Any comments?
I think the motion speaks for itself. We need the funds to run the center. The center is very popular. It is a definite part of our community, and the voters will have an opportunity on August 4th to express their opinion on this matter.
Thank you. Commissioner Campana.
To repeat, this is a renewal, and it's not a new tax. It is a renewal. And as Commissioner Baldini has said, the Senior Center is a very good program. They have good people there running it, and, you know, it's a high mark for the city. So I would encourage this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, could I ask you or one of your staff to address what kind of services the Senior Center provides? Because just saying vote for the Senior Center or don't vote for the funds, what does it actually entail? What does it do? Mr. Sugar?
Yeah, certainly I can answer some of that. Obviously there are several services that are provided to our seniors that are 60 and over within our community, and those would include case coordination and support with other professionals throughout our community, financial management for our seniors that are most fragile. Homemaking services are very important in that we keep our seniors in their home with dignity. Outreach services, so working with developing programs. One of the things that we did this year was actually working in putting out information that allows seniors to actually evaluate private providers to see if, in fact, you know, from background checks, these types of things. And so we work cooperatively with the county on that, information and assistance, and health and recreation. Some of the things in terms of our partnerships, AARP 55 drive class, health screening, stroke screening, memory clinics, blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol screenings. Those are all health screenings that we do through the Senior Center and with our partnerships. Michigan State Extension classes, law enforcement, lectures, foot clinics, those types of things. We also work with the YMCA, the co-op. We're also, we've got a strong senior art program that we run through not only the Senior Center but through the Arts and Culture Center. So it's been a nice cooperative, which includes theater as well as other types of great arts offerings. So our staff is, we've actually have 4 full-time employees, a Senior Center coordinator, and 3 licensed social workers that work with our seniors within our community. I think we are one of the most accomplished senior centers within the county. We certainly provide significant services with the staff that we have. We have 7 homemaker aides. We provide personal care for our most fragile seniors. And we also have 2 clerical aides that work throughout the center.
Thanks very much. I think that's helpful to have people be aware of the tremendous number of things that this center does. It's not just a place where, you know, a couple old geezers come and play cards once a week. I mean, it really does a lot for the senior citizen. So appreciate that. So hope people would take that, both of all ages, when they come to vote on this on August 4th. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Thank you again. All those in favor of adopting the resolution to submit the ballot language on August 4th, primary election for a dedicated millage renewal to operate the Marquette Senior Center, and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. That motion passes. We move on next to item number 7. That's the Marquette Mayor's Challenge to End Veterans Homelessness. Mr. Clerk, could you read that, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Background: in October of 2014, Marquette Mayor Robert Nemi joined the Mayor's Challenge, an initiative with a goal to end all veteran homelessness in the city of Marquette. The purpose of the Mayor's Challenge is for mayors to publicly express their commitment and provide the leadership to implement the strategies necessary for their communities to end homelessness among all veterans locally. In partnership with the Housing and Urban Development, the city of Marquette will seek to end veteran homelessness in Marquette by the end of 2015. Pursuant to the commitment, Marquette Mayor Michael Coyne has confirmed he will continue the Mayor's Challenge. Fiscal effect: none. Recommendation: none. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Mr. Nemi, would you wanted to come and say a few words?
Thank you. Again, I'm Robert Nemi. I live at 1702 Gray in the city of Marquette. I'd like to thank Mayor Coyne for continuing this challenge. I think it's certainly not my concept, but I've heard that the measure of a community is really how it treats or serves or protects its most vulnerable, and certainly our community is one of those communities that does that on a number of planes. We have, as far as homeless goes, we have a volunteer shelter that is a faith-based shelter. It rotates among churches weekly, provides emergency shelter to the homeless from September through April, the most harshest months of our year. Depends entirely on volunteers. It gets no government funding. It takes 94 volunteers a week to staff the shelter. So 94 people are stepping up each and every week, and I think that speaks a lot about our community. And it's kind of ironic when we were looking at the strategic plan last year, which is required by the new charter. The 1994 strategic plan had a goal of a homeless shelter, and I always thought, well, that's probably not something the city should do. The city should do all it can to assist that, but that's not really an objective of local city government to provide, and I think our community has shown that we do it effectively with volunteers. And the second aspect of this, which is really an amazing thing, is the payment in lieu of taxes that you approve for the orphanage. That's going to provide much needed veteran housing, and it may solve the issue of homeless veterans with 20 units. I know in the room at the inn has housed a number of veterans, but not anywhere near 20 throughout the years. So that could possibly solve the problem, and hopefully it will. But it's such a win-win situation. We've got a decrepit building that had no future, and now we'll see another future. And not only will provide get rid of a blighted building, provide homeless shelter, plus it'll provide the city $10,000 a year, which is an amazing thing. I never thought I'd see it, so thank you for that, and thank you for continuing the Mayor's Challenge on homelessness.
Thank you. If you could stay there for a minute in case there are any questions that any of the commissioners have. Any questions at all? No. Thank you for coming, and thank you for initiating this, and you're right, it's a great thing to provide this for veterans who are struggling, so appreciate it. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. There's no necessary action. I wrote the letter, but I did not want to send it unless you all agreed with continuing the program, so we'll go ahead and send it. All right, the next item is the FOIA appeal. Mr. Clerk, could you read that, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Michael Niger submitted the following written request for information to the city clerk under the Freedom of Information Act. Quote, a copy of all city manager Bill Vita's emails without attachments between December 1st and December 31st, 2013, irregardless of subject matter. As the city's designated FOIA coordinator, the city clerk reviewed the request. It was also reviewed by the city attorney pursuant to City Policy 2002-03. Thereafter, the city clerk issued a written notice to Mr. Niger denying the request for the reason that it does not comply with Section 3 of the Freedom of Information Act, which requires that that a written request describe the public record sufficiently to enable the public body to find the public record, as well as the Michigan Attorney General Opinion 5500. Mr. Niger submitted a written appeal to the City Commission pursuant to Section 5 of the Act, which provides that a person may submit to the head of the public body a written appeal. A copy of the appeal papers filed by Mr. Niger are attached. FOIA requires that within 10 days after receiving the written appeal, the head of the public body shall do one of the following: A, reverse the disclosure denial; B, issue a written notice to the requesting person upholding the disclosure denial; C, reverse the disclosure denial in part and issue a written notice to the requesting person upholding the disclosure denial in part; or D, under unusual circumstances, issue a notice extending for not more than 10 business days the period during which the head of the public body shall respond to the written appeal. The head of the public body shall not issue more than one notice or extension for a particular appeal. Fiscal effect none. Recommendation: consider the appeal and issue a written notice to Mr. Niger upholding the disclosure denial. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. We have three individuals who wish to speak. Bryce, would you like to come forward and state your name again and where you live and so forth?
Took notes on my phone, so I had to bring up my phone. All right, I am Bryce Burge. I live at 423 West Crescent in Marquette. I'm also a journalist. I run Marquette Social Scene. I use FOIAs all the time. I actually submitted two today, one to the police department, one to the NMU. So it's not unfamiliar to have people make these kind of requests, even though that this one is pretty sizable. The only thing is that a Freedom of Information Act is less about the information that you get from it. It's more about the process. It's a process that restores faith in the ability of self-governance. It restores faith in the issue to go through and hold your elected and your appointed officials properly to proper techniques and proper information, and that they're doing their due diligence on everything. The thing is that this is a really sizable FOIA, and I can understand, but Niger made a really good case in his appeal. He made three good points, which kind of summarized was that the Freedom of Information Act that was originally referenced in that 1979 case was for 50 months. This is for 1. The correspondents requested are emailed so they would be located quicker instead of physical copies. And due to electronic searches, which weren't even around, I think, at this level in 2007 when that Attorney General handbook and pamphlet came out again, was even good enough to include things like timeline searches, which means that now time is kind of a searchable aspect. Like I said, though, because of the size and because of some of the aspects of it, it could go either way. And so for me right now, I just want to ask to please make sure that when you guys go through this, that it's not about the boathouse, that it's not about him FOIAing large things before, that it's not about personal issues, that it's about the words of his request, that it's the way that the request was done, that the process at hand is being upheld. Because I know Dave over here, we've commended him a lot, and I'd like to add to that commendation, because whenever I've dealt with him, he's done a stand-up job. And I thought that he did a good job with explaining why that he didn't think this was a good enough FOIA to file. Mr. Niger has done the same thing. It's brought to you today where it could go either way. So I would like, personally, this means a lot to me. I was the one that kind of went through and dealt with all the NMU FOIAs with the illegal meeting at the Northwind, and been dealing with that and seeing how a lot of people don't respect the process that goes involved. This would do a lot to restore a lot of faith and everything in the system. And I think you guys can do that today if you open your minds and open your hearts and do this the right way. And so I'd like to ask you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ferrato, would you like to speak?
Frank Jeff Ferrato, 350 East Ridge, Marquette. These are my opinions. Our clerk and the attorney, whose wife belongs to the rowing club, denied Niger's request on the assumption that he didn't adequately describe what public record he sought. Niger's request is simple. He seeks the public record of the manager's email activity through all of December 2013. To avoid the complications of his previous request that burdened the city departments with digging through emails and conducting keyword searches, Michael simplified the task for VITA by requesting a contiguous block of emails. All Bill needs to do is organize his December 2013 emails chronologically. Niger is trying to prevent any pertinent emails from being omitted in case specific keywords don't appear in them, or if keywords are improperly spelled. Your supplement dares to lend credibility to an Attorney General opinion from 1979, long before the advent of emails. You deny the request based on the mistruth that under Section 3, the request doesn't, quote, describe the public record sufficiently to enable the public body to find it. That excuse is evasive, if not insane. A block of emails is too simple to find to believe. For this and other reasons, Niger seeks your clarification of his denial. What are you trying to hide? This issue is compounded by the fact that the manager's wife holds a high position in the rowing club, which is why he claimed to have recused himself from partaking in the boathouse discourse. By virtue of his marriage, it's easy to wonder if VITA's emails contain comment on the boathouse that he desperately doesn't want revealed. We're already aware of at least 2 alleged boathouse emails from the manager. January 29, 2014, he wrote, "We are now at a point where new approach must be considered. Our spouses are active members of the rowing club." July 1st, the same manager sent an email to Campana stating that multiple reasons of the UPCRC have requested the attached information, multiple members that is, which included a list of 140 private nonprofit groups in the city, as well as a list of private groups with facilities that have partnered with the city. Some recusal, those are. We have every reason to believe there's more. Easy as Niger's request is to fulfill, we can only wonder if the clerk and attorney wish to conceal information. After all, the manager's employment may be jeopardized if any incriminating matter exists in those emails, and if there is, it's my opinion that you travel to the farthest end of the earth to present their disclosure. The attorney and clerk are attempting to deny an opponent's FOIA request, just as this board has done to me. We paid for the time that VITA spent writing those emails, thus we're entitled to view them. Too many taxpayers oppose the scope of that boathouse to withhold information. Niger has invested thousands of dollars for the betterment of our community. You'd best provide him the information without any further finagling or excuses not to honor your FOIA fulfillment requirements.
Next, Yorma, would you like to speak?
Good evening, Yorma Lankin, 8 Marquette Drive. I'm going to take a different approach on this one. We as a community, we have a lot of private entrepreneurs work with the city as well, like we've had the soccer fields work with the city, mutual partnership. We had the skating people, or the roller skating people work with the city in private and public venture. The hockey team with the Lakeview Arena, private and public with the city of Marquette. This really, and I'm not advocating secrecy, but I'm advocating once you cross over this line of private and government and public working together, this really starts discouraging people that want to work and put this together. Let's be honest with each other. It is about the boathouse. It's about as clear as it can be. And this individual already has wanted to recall commissioners, failed at that point, like I said earlier. And now it seems to be like a vendetta. So if you don't win in this venue, then you start in another, and it appears to be a very open-ended. We've been FOIA'd several times for the landfill, and it's really specific rather than just a plain open-ended type of thing. And so you just can't have somebody stick their thumb drive and just ask for irrelevant information and what they may or may run into in the interaction of reading those things. Specific items are fair game for everybody. But at the end of the day, we need to work with private individuals that want to work with the city, like I mentioned, the other and many others that have worked with the city in improving the lives of all the citizens in our community with different activities. We wouldn't have these things without the private and the city working together. And if the next group that wants to do something and pay for it with the city, it's going to really put a big question in there. And furthermore, these people with the boathouse went through the entire process. It was all vented out. It was all permitted out. Even Mr. Vedito wanted this particular location. Now it's at the location, and now he disagrees with that as well. And so it's been really vented really, really well. And so I don't have an issue with that at all. And thank you for allowing me to speak my piece on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Yorma. Is there a motion? Commissioner Campana.
I'd like to make the motion to deny Mr. Niger's FOIA request appeal.
Okay, is there a support to that? Commissioner Reynolds?
Sure. Second.
Okay. Commissioner Campana?
I'm planning to vote no to Mr. Niger's appeal based on the opinion of the city clerk and the city attorney who are ruling against it. They know exactly what they're stating, and I tend to believe what they have to say. It's a unreasonable request. Thank you.
Commissioner Reynolds.
As much as I am sensitive to the comments that were given, I also deal with FOIA on a actual daily basis. I'm a paralegal at a law firm, and at least once a week I do a FOIA request on some different agency. And what Mr. Niger's requesting isn't specific enough. When I go in to do a FOIA, if I was to ask the Marquette City Police, I wouldn't just ask the Marquette City Police of a FOIA for anything regarding Sarah K. Reynolds. I would get denied because it's not specific enough. I would have to say Sarah K. Reynolds' date of birth. I actually was denied this week because I forgot to put a date of birth for the state of Michigan, for a police report, and I was requesting it, and I didn't put a date of birth, so I was denied. So I have been denied, and I personally looked through this Bill Vita's email chain for me in December 2013, let alone 70 emails were sent to me and 60 were sent back to him. So that's just me alone. I can't imagine every commissioner, employee, citizen, how many thousands of pages of documentation that would be. And based upon reading the Attorney General's ruling and knowing as much as I do about FOIA, I will deny this for that reason. This being said, I'm not doing it because it's Mr. Niger. That's upsetting to me to think that that would be why. At one point he did request FOIA documentation, and it was approved because it was specific enough. So for that reason, I will deny it, but that's only because it's overly burdensome and vague. And that is all.
Good. Any other comments? Commissioner Cambenzi?
Well, I guess, I mean, in reading this, it's very vague. And I'm wondering if anyone actually talked to him about what was missing. You know, like Commissioner Reynolds said, like could be anything, everything. It could be a news blog, it could be whatever. And I'm wondering if the clerk or anyone from the city manager's office, city attorney actually sat down and explained, you know, if it was about the boathouse, don't you think he'd put boathouse on there? I mean, has there been any dialogue? Because right now I feel like the communication, and I think Mr. Brugge brought up a good statement, is that it's more about kind of what it does to not be open to sharing records. To deny it, are we going to ask him to be more specific? because I think of just making a statement, we're denying it, period. I think, one, the denial should have the reasons. Two, I think we should kind of steer him in some direction. I think by not doing that, we saw how it played out with Northern, and I think it wasn't pretty. It's still not pretty. When the FOIA request was done before, there wasn't one email that I deleted. All of my emails were in there. All of my drafts were in there except for one email chain, and that had to do with emails between State Representative Keevil and I. And that's disconcerting to me. It was also disconcerting to find that our process and our policy doesn't lay out exactly who does the FOIA exclusively. You know, we had city staff doing their own FOIAs and then turning them in, whereas all the commissioners got our FOIAs done by the IT department. So when I went back and I typed in my emails the search for everything Michael Niger had on there and the 5 different keywords, everything came up from John Keevla in the emails. So no explanation, but if I didn't actually go through and read those and question why they weren't there, that causes me as a commissioner to wonder, did someone go through what was FOIA'd and then take out something? So I think Mr. Brody was right, is what this does, just by denying it and thus shooing it away, is it doesn't invite the public to trust us. And I'd like to see more tied to this than just denying it. In fact, I was looking at option 4 on there, which was actually an extension for, let me pull it up here.
D, you mean?
Well, there's Part D, I guess, and I'm wondering what does that mean? What is that option, or what? It's extending it another 10 days, but would that give us time to? It's just the response. Okay.
What? I couldn't hear the whispering there. What was said?
I'm sorry, Mayor. That was just the response. That 10-day extension, I believe, is directed at just the extension for time to respond, rather than take into other things into account.
Okay. Any other comments, Commissioner Baldini?
In the letter that was sent to us, and I'm reading my notes here now, it says on March 13th, 2015, the undersigned, a representative of Save the Founders, blah, 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 blah. It says a copy of all City Manager Bill Vida's emails without attachments between December 1st, December 31st, irrespective of subject matter. So I'm assuming they knew what they were looking for. In other words, they wanted a blanket of all the things, and so in their request it said irrespective of subject matter, and then it goes on in our information, backup information, the response then of the city clerk to him. I've also dealt with FOIA over the years, being FOIA'd, and there are very specific guidelines, and they're there to also protect the public, because if you can just go fishing, especially in the police department, you could. I just want to see all the complaints made last month in the police department. Probably would be a longer blog in the Mining Journal than there is right now, but so it's a two-edged sword, because it also respects some of the privacy that I think was raised by one of the speakers. So it appears they did say irrespective of subject matter, so I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. I have a couple comments. One, I'm for assuming he knows what he's looking for. Well, if he knows what he's looking for, then why doesn't he say, I'm looking for this topic, rather than the whole month? Or why didn't he do 5 years of it? That doesn't make any sense. And I would like to ask the attorney and the clerk this question, because of the innuendo made that you're trying to protect or hide something. Both tonight that was made, and then on the Save Founders Landing Beach thing is an innuendo by cartoon that, you know, deep secrets are held by Marquette that we don't want anybody to know about. This decision, I will ask both of you, do you have any idea what is in the month of December of 2013? Did you even look at that, or did you just follow the law as it is right now, regardless whether it was written in 1800 or 1979 or when? Did you look through and say, oh my God, you can't show that? Yes or no? Did you look through?
I did not look at any of his emails. I looked at the request and responded to it based on that, and then subsequent to that, consulted the city attorney to see if I was on the right track, and we both confirmed the same concept.
I'm actually required, Your Honor, to do it under the city policy, and it's cited in the agenda supplement. That's why I got involved, because it's a requirement. But this really was not a difficult decision to make. The law is quite clear, and this is about following the law. It's not about some individual or some secrecy. This is what the statute says.
Okay, so you did not go through and say, oh my God.
I haven't seen an email.
Thank you. That ought to take care of the innuendos that are spoken tonight and on this relentless Facebook page. And so, okay. Any further comments? Excuse me, Commissioner Frazier.
Just one thing, I agree with the other commissioners that I guess if he knows what he's looking for, then I think we should say, you know, a denial with respect to if he knows what he's looking for. If he could make another request and be specific about what he's looking for in the month of December, then the city could look at the FOIA request again. You know, but I agree with the other commissioner, just saying no outright with no explanation might be a bad thing, but, you know, explanation of we're denying this request, but if you know what if you want to make another request with more specific under these guidelines, then, you know, please apply again.
Well, thank you. The motion is to deny it, not to have a conference with him and give him, that's up to him as to decide. And if he listens to this, he's not here tonight, interestingly. If he hears that, then he knows what his options are. Okay, Commissioner Kempenzi.
Well, I guess I would like to make that comment first. Just, you know, I think after looking at, you know, the state law and the Attorney General's ruling on it, even though it is older, I mean, I think my message in voting against this is simply to, I guess, revisit it, sit down with us and put in a request that is more specific. I guess personally, I feel like if anyone wanted to look at anything in my email, even if it was a blanket statement, I would welcome that. But that's me. I have nothing to hide. Every one of my emails, except the ones that weren't there before, were in there. I don't delete emails. I don't hide anything. So I guess from that standpoint, I can see the frustration in this, but I guess looking at the law part of it, it does make sense. And I just have one question for our city attorney. What happens if this goes to court? If it's denied, fine, but what happens if he's granted?
If it's denied?
If the court rules in his favor, I guess, well, are we held?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Let me just back up a little bit. Just for the sake of people who might be listening to this, the city gets FOIAs every day, almost. And they're processed all the time. It's the rarest of occasions when someone is denied and then takes an appeal. He can take an appeal to the city commission, which Mr. Niger has done, or he can actually go to circuit court right away. He doesn't have to go this route. So it's not like every FOIA that's done is going to come before this commission. They're going to say yay or nay to it. This is extremely rare. I've never seen it before in 10 years. But he could, from this, if it's denied, he could always take his option to circuit court. I mean, that's up to him. That's basically it. Does that answer the question?
Just that if we deny it, but a court approves it, I guess it doesn't affect.
What we do here doesn't affect that.
Yeah. So that's one of his options. He could also, if the assumption is correct that he knows what he's looking for, be specific, and who cares? ask for it, but not stick the thumb drive in and, do everything. Could be 20,000 emails. I mean, that's just, okay. Any further discussion? Okay, call the motion then. The motion is to uphold the denial of the request for FOIA as stated in the agenda item. All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Okay, that motion passes then. Okay. That concludes the agenda items. Now, comments from the commission. Mr. Baldini, would you like to start?
Thank you. Thank you for the motion regarding the 4th of July. It's less than 3 months, which is a little frightening, as I said, with all the ice in the harbor. We are still in the process of raising money and raising funds, and that will go on continuously. I was going to make some comments about the city clerk, but I think we will save that to a future time, because I think we all have a lot of accolades. And those of us who served in the Charter Commission knows that without it, we'd probably still be in session. So, thank you.
Commissioner Reynolds?
I don't have much further to add tonight other than really it's just about Dave Blue, and we'll plan something, and I'm personally going to bring a cake just for you. Nobody else gets to eat it, just yours. And with regard to Duke Life Point and our visit, I still constantly get a little bit on the fence about the whole thing, and I have to remind myself that I am going to come back, and I am going to, anybody who has questions, I'm going to provide those questions. The first question I am going to ask once they give us their lovely presentation is, when will they be here? So I hope to come back with a date for that, but other than that, I don't have anything really to add.
Thank you. Commissioner Campana?
First of all, we had a very good presentation tonight from the Sustainability Committee. I'm glad to see they're really gearing up. Unfortunately, I won't be here at the next meeting, so I want to say thank you to Dave Blue. I've enjoyed working with him. He's been very, very easy to work with. The trip to Nashville, people think that that's a vacation. I believe I'm not going on that trip, and I'm glad I'm not, because it's a day down and a day back, and when you're flying like that, it is not a vacation. It's going to be all work, all business, and I'm sure that they are going to come up here and explain to everybody everything you want to know. It takes time. You don't build a hospital in 1 month. This is going to be a long process. Thank you.
Commissioner Frazier?
Thanks again, Dave. We've known you for a short time, but we chatted for the meeting. Seems like you have a fun retirement. Tom, you'd be glad to know the ice is pretty much gone from the harbor. I just launched the Coast Guard boat today, so there's a chance that you'll have open water for the 4th of July. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but there's a chance. So keep your fingers crossed, thumbs crossed, whatever you gotta do. Anybody that's interested in history, there's an Anatomy of a Murder fundraiser coming up in May too. If you want to get a hold of Marquette Elder Resolution, they're doing a fundraiser based on the Anatomy of a Murder trial, and they're having local attorneys bid on this and portray it like it was done in the movie and stuff like that. So it should be interesting. Should be a good time. Last thing, got a chance to go to Florida, escape the winter weather. I'm sorry I wasn't here for the snowstorm. I was relaxing by the beach, watching the weather, going, I wish I was there, but sorry I wasn't. Happy to come back to 56-degree day instead of 40 like last time, but look forward to our trip to Tennessee and get as much information as we can about the hospital and bring it back to the community.
Peter, do you really expect us to believe that you're sorry you weren't here? I don't personally believe that. Okay. Commissioner Kimbenzi?
Okay. I guess I'd just like to start. I've had a lot of comments about the tax tribunal panel that they had April 9th. I did not attend. I had other plans, but it was my understanding that none of us actually made it there that night. And I think that upset a lot of people. And certainly it wasn't my intention to blow it off. And I think a lot of other commissioners sitting here with me, we don't always say, are you going to this, are you going to that? But I don't think it was intentional, at least on my part. I look back and wish I was there, to show support for our community, our county, but especially our neighbors in Marquette Township, because I think this is hitting them much harder than a lot of us realize. They've cut their budget hundreds of thousands of dollars in a budget that isn't much more than $1 million. So I do want to put that out there, but that I do fully support all the efforts going on with our legislators and our neighbors, including ourselves. Also, I'd just like to put another plug in to support the girls all-state, team of them. There's 16 of them that want to go. I did send my money, and I'd like to encourage my other commissioners to help support that. This is a record number of women that want to be involved for it. It's a great event for them to get down there and actually learn what government is like. And as Commissioner Reynolds would probably say, we are the minority, even though we're equal in population. So in terms of government, those getting in and doing stuff. So I fully support that. Another fundraiser, we are doing the Marquette Area Public Schools, a 5th grade outdoor research camp chili cook-off. This is the camp that all of the 5th grade class goes to Bay Cliff for 2 to 3 days, and probably a lot of them for the first time they're away from home, but they get to do things at that camp that the campers that head there every summer, it's a pretty magical place. And it cost about $25,000 to send the entire 5th grade class there, and we're looking to raise about $10,000 from this event. So that's coming up April 27th. We do have a commission meeting that night, but hopefully I can coax some of you into coming beforehand and getting some chili. Again, I'd like to congratulate Dave Blue, and I'll save the bulk of it for the next meeting, but it is true, if you weren't there probably working 2 40-hour jobs at that point helping us with the charter, we would never have finished it in under a year. So I know that carries into your everyday work, and it's noticed and appreciated, so thank you. A quick update, the County Climate Adaptation Committee. That's something that Commissioner Baldini and I attended on Thursday morning, or Friday morning it was, when the snowstorm. It was quite fitting that we were there. And that is something that I was appointed to by the previous commission, actually 2 commissions ago, and then Commissioner Baldini was on it with a different hat at the time. But some great stuff going on for those that might not be big on climate change. What this is a group of us in the county coming together to look at how we adapt to weather patterns we're not used to, what it does to our infrastructure, what it does to our buffers, and what it means in dollars and cents to those of us that are in elected positions that have to deal with budgets, as well as employees. So it's fascinating. We actually teleconferenced with a gentleman in Washington, D.C. from NOAA, and we put in a pretty good pitch to have Marquette be a test pilot for a data center, because right now they're really monitoring the coast with not much going on in the Great Lakes, and I think we're starting to feel it here in terms of just our water levels, our lake levels, and certainly some severe storms. And the ice shelf, I was actually at Little Presque Isle last night at 6 o'clock when I saw the helicopter flying around rescuing 16 people, and it's being out there when you don't know what's going on, it gives you a sinking feeling in your gut that someone's out on these ice things that are moving and shifting fast. But luckily I did read the paper before coming here, and all 16 were safe, 2 dogs, families, so good news. And I'd just like to ask, the last time I picked up my packet for re-election, I was the only one, and I'm hoping that someone can tell me there's at least a few others that have thrown their hat in, so I don't know.
So far not. So there's, I think, 2 for the Board of Light and Power and yours for the City Commission.
Well, here's my plug. Hopefully, you're the only one left, so you have to help me. But, you know, I will say it's a challenging job. It's time-consuming. But it's one of the most important things I will ever do. And I'm urging people who really are passionate and love this city to step up. You will not always agree with the other commissioners, but you will gain insight. You will think differently. You will learn how to work together on projects with people that you know sometimes you don't see eye to eye to, and it's one of the best things I think anyone can do to give back to their community. So please, you have until next Monday. That's a week, and you only need 25 signatures, or you can pay $50. I believe
100.
100. Oh, okay. Well, it's considerable, but you know, please consider it. I know there are some people thinking about it out there, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, when is the last day you can submit the application for running?
I have the 21st, which is next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, so a week from tomorrow. Okay. Well, I echo your comments. I would hope some people will continue to give it thought and step up. I wanted to explain why 3 of us were not at the Michigan Tax Tribunal meeting. We were at the Ore Boat welcoming, and in fairness, we'd been waiting 8 days for them to come. I had assigned the Mayor Pro Tem to go out and stand on the end of the ore dock, and he'd been there for 8 days waiting. With considerable whining, I might add. But finally they showed up, and they were very gracious and very glad to be here because they'd run out of coffee and eggs. So they were grouchy and kind of making a beeline to the grocery store. But it's interesting, the ore boat captain had been coming here for years. His major route is Marquette to Detroit. And last year, we were very sympathetic that he'd been stuck in Whitefish Bay for 8 days, and he said, well, that was nothing. Last year we were in the St. Mary's River for 18 days, so it was just a series, as often as in marine life. One of the icebreakers broke down, and then a ore boat got a hole punched in it and had to unload out in the lake to another ore boat, which was a challenge. And they would move, and then the ice would, the wind would shift, and they'd get stuck again. So it was very difficult for them. But he had been coming here for years, and his first words out of his mouth were, "This is the best port ever. I love coming here." And then started blah, blah, blah. What he does, he rides his bike, and he loves the people, and he just was a great, I'm sorry we didn't record all that, because he really was a great fan of Marquette and loved to come here. So that's why we were not there, not lack of interest. We keep getting remarks about the trip to Duke Life Point. I was scheduled to go on vacation this week, and I canceled my trip, and I'm going to Nashville because I think it's extremely important. And the comments of, this is a paid vacation. Well, it's the worst paid vacation I've ever been on. It's I get on a plane at 9 in the morning, I get back at 9 the next evening, and have a whole day of meetings. And my vacation will be for about 2 hours, probably to eat dinner on Tuesday. And so that's really an unfair remark. I think also, I want to point out that Duke Life Point has not purchased the land. And the more criticism that comes, I kind of thought of this idea. And I thought of this when they originally made the ask for us invitation to come. If they haven't purchased the land, I'm not sure it's at all ethical or appropriate for us to have them either send a private jet or to pay for our trip, because that, to me, is trying to influence us. And in reality, we're going there to try to help them along, to buy the property, and help them do better with what they've done so far in terms of public relations and so forth, and I think they're getting the message. But we are representing the city. We're not being paid by them to do it, which would be highly inappropriate. So you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you say, well, the people who are being critical, they should pay. Well, I don't think so. And I think if we wanted to go, we should pay as a city. So also the remarks about the Peter White Public Library and the city adjusting our budget, that is simply out of pure ignorance of the budget process of Peter White Public Library and the city. They aren't connected. As if you ever attended budget sessions at the library or the city, you would understand that. And that's an inappropriate remark. That's all I have. Mr. Manager, any comments?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, with that, we're adjourned.